Good evening. This is Evan Gregory, and this is Bible Answers. We're going to be continuing our study in John chapter 6 tonight. All of our verses, we're not going to get through the entirety of the chapter tonight, but all of the verses that we'll be looking at is on the screen here so you can follow along. As always, this is brought to you by the North Columbus Church of Christ in Columbus, Mississippi. Our website is northcolumbuschristians.com. We also have a YouTube page. Our YouTube page is North Columbus Church of Christ, and you can see all of our previous videos there. And so, for the last several weeks, we've been working our way through John. Last week, we looked at the first part of chapter 6. We see where Jesus was feeding the 5,000, and he also walks on the water as well. So, two quite notable miracles that are occurring in Jesus's ministry. And so, getting right into the lesson, we ended in verse 27 last time, and so we're going to pick up in 28. So remember, this is after Jesus walks on the water and feeds the 5,000, and so the people that he just fed go and try to find him. Okay, and we see at the end of that he's telling them that the real reason you're following me is because you just want the food, and it's not that they're realizing who he is and what it means when he can perform such a miracle as that. And so, verse 28, it says, Then they said to him, What shall we do that we may work the works of God? Jesus answered and said to them, This is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he sent. Therefore they said to him, What sign will you perform then, that we may see it and believe you? What work will you do? Our fathers ate the manna in the desert, as it is written, He gave them bread from heaven to eat. So notice what their response is to Jesus. Now, again, these people they witnessed a miracle. Okay, pretty. Well, I was going to say pretty miraculous miracle, but that wouldn't make any sense. But I mean, a great notable miracle that has occurred, and so they ask him, "What how can we work the works of God? What can we work, or what can we do that is the works of God?" Okay, and notice what he says. He says, "This is the work of God, that you believe in Him whom He sent." Okay, he doesn't say go do these great things, go do X, Y, or Z, but he says this is the work of God, that you believe in Him whom He sent. Okay, so this is what they're supposed to do. Okay, they're this, and it's also interesting here that it is described as a work. Okay, and usually in the New Testament, when people are talking about the New Testament, the idea of works or just talking about works, well, that's a no. We that's bad. But notice what Jesus here is saying. He says this is the work of God, this is a godly work. This is what you ought to be doing. And he says what you ought to be doing is believing in him whom he sent. And I noticed their response to that. Okay. And so it seems as though they're making the connection that Jesus is saying, believe in me. Okay. Believe in Jesus. Okay. And that God sent Jesus. And so they immediately say, What sign will you perform then, that we may see it and believe you? And this statement is fascinating because, again, they just witnessed miracles. Okay, that and so and they're coming there because he gave them all the food as a result of the miracle. And then they say, well, show us another miracle, show us another sign that we may see and believe you. And they don't even make the connection that they already. It's like they just totally just. It doesn't even cross their mind that they have already witnessed these things. Okay, and so immediately they ask, "What work will you do?" And then they talk about their fathers eating this manna in the desert, that they miraculously had this food being provided for them. And so notice Jesus' response in verses 32 through 35. It says, Then Jesus said to them, Most assuredly I say to you, Moses did not give you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Then they said to him, Lord, give us this bread always. And Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst. And so Jesus says Moses did not give you the bread of heaven. I don't know why exactly he is saying this. Maybe they were thinking that Moses was it was directly from Moses as is a reason that they were able to receive this bread. But he says that he did not give you the bread of heaven. That Moses might have played a part in this, and he might have been an intermediary between this, much like giving them the water in times past. That he might have been that intermediary, but it's not Moses. Moses, in and of himself, did not have the power to give them bread or to give them water, or whatever it may be. And he's making clear he did not give you this; that it was God that gave you this. But he says, "My Father gives you the true bread of heaven." So he's going into a different manner. So these others in times past, they had the manna. Now the Father is giving them, as he puts it, true bread. Okay, that the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. So he makes note, and what he's saying is the bread of God is him. The bread of God is Jesus, and so he comes down from heaven. So this is where he originated. He was with God. We see that back in John chapter 1. He was with God, and he was God, and he gives a life to the world, so that through him one can have salvation. And their response is that they want this bread. Okay, give us this bread always. And then he comes back and says, well, I am the bread of life. Okay, they want this bread. He is bread. He's not talking about loaves of bread. He's talking about something that is necessary, that they have to have it in order to have life and continue life. He says that this bread is him. I am the bread of life. And if you come to me, you shall never hunger, and you shall never thirst. Remember back in John chapter 4, and if you haven't watched that, we have these videos on YouTube, or you can scroll through YouTube and scroll through Facebook rather, and see these videos from the past. But in John chapter 4, Jesus is talking to the Samaritan woman at the well, and he talks about this water, this living water that they can receive. And so instead of talking about water, now he's talking about bread. Okay, but he's still making that same connection here, that you have to partake of this water or partake of this bread, and through that you can live. You will never hunger, not in a physical sense, but in a spiritual sense. You will never hunger, and you will never thirst. So continue on to verses 36 through 40. And it says, but I said to you that you have seen me, and yet do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and the one who comes to me I will by no means cast out. For I've come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. This is the will of the Father who sent me, that of all he has given me I should lose nothing, but I should raise it up at the last day. And this is the will of him who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. So again, he tells them, you've seen it. I mean, they want this bread, but you've seen me. I am the true bread, and yet you still don't believe. And he continues on talking about really how him and the Father are connected. Okay, that he's come down from heaven, and again, it's I don't know if we can completely understand this, but he says that he come down from heaven. Remember that he was with God and he was God, but he says that he's come to do the will of the Father. Okay, he doesn't have some side plan and his own will. He's doing the will of the Father. And so notice what the will of the Father is. He says that of all he has given me, I should lose nothing, but I should raise it up as the last day. So the Father is going to give him something. Okay, and so this is going to be that those that what he's talking about here is those that will believe on him. And we see that earlier, all that the Father gives me will come to me, and the one who comes to me I will by no means cast out. So this, he's talking about those that come to him, those that believe in him. They will that they are drawn by the Father. And the Father is, in a sense, giving these individuals to the Son. And so that once they're His, he also says that I would not lose them, that I should lose nothing, but rather to raise it up at the last day. And again, referencing to the resurrection, okay, that there will that they will be saved, and then that they will be raised up at the last day, that all who believe are going to be resurrected and be with Him. It says, and this is the will of Him who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in Him may have everlasting life. So again, those that come to the Father, those that the Father has given Him, as He puts it, right? And again, the will is that everyone who sees the Son and believes in Him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. So He makes that connection that we see at the first part, and what we see in verse, and connects it with what we see in verse 40 here. Okay. And so the Father is going to give him some, and that's going to be those that believe, and those that believe have everlasting life, going back to that bread and that water, that those that partake of that bread will never hunger or never thirst. Here, those that believe will have everlasting life. They will always have what they need. There's not going to be any wants. There's not going to be any more death, and He's going to raise him up at the last day. So again, referencing that resurrection. Going to 41 through 44 says, the Jews then complained about Him because He said, I am the bread which came down from heaven. And He said, is not this Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How is it then that He says, I have come down from heaven? Jesus therefore answered and said to them, do not murmur among yourselves. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up at the last day. So Jesus is making those claims, and they're saying, this is, this is crazy. Why is He saying such things? We know this fella. He's Jesus, the son of Joseph. We know his parents. We know where he's from. So why is He saying here that He's come down from heaven? And so notice his response. He doesn't really spend a whole lot of time contradicting this and rebuking that thought, but he continues on with what He has previously said here. He says, no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up at the last day. So another similar statement to what we've seen previously of the Father giving things to the Son here. Now He says that no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up at the last day. And so this begs the question: what is Jesus talking about here? He says that no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. What is the Father doing that allows people to come to Jesus? And so that's a good question. A lot of people have some differing views on what that means. Is there some type of supernatural or supernatural thing that God does that causes the people to come to Jesus, or is it something else? Okay, and I think He clears this up in verses 45 through 50. He says, it is written in the prophets, and they shall all be taught by God. Therefore, everyone who has heard and learned from the Father comes to me. Notice what He says. So the Father is going to draw people to Jesus, but then it continues on. It says they shall all be taught by God. Okay, so how is God teaching them? Okay, it says therefore everyone who has heard and learned from the Father comes to me. So how do you hear? How do you learn from the Father? The people in those times, so those Jews, how would they hear from the Father, or how would they learn from the Father? Okay. Well, the only consistent way in which they can do that is through the Word, through the Scriptures here. Okay, and so I think it's, and we can look at some other passages that also kind of have this same idea here. But what is clear here is that He's not talking about some something that we can't see, some supernatural thing that we can't see. What he's saying here is that if you learn from the Father, the word that the Father has given to us, is given to us in the past. If you read those things, you're reading the things of God. You're reading the Word of God, and therefore you're learning the things of God. And so, reading that will cause one to be drawn to Jesus if they truly understand and believe the things that are written. And so he continues on. He says, "Not that anyone has seen the Father, except he who is from God. He has seen the Father. Most assuredly, I say to you, he who believes in me has everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which comes down from heaven, that one may eat of it and not die." So the Father is going to draw people to Jesus, that they're going to come to Jesus. But then he says, "Not that anyone has seen the Father except he who is from God." Another statement talking of his divinity, saying that really what he's saying is that he has seen God, he has seen the Father. And again, repeating what he has previously said, that if you believe in me, if you believe in Jesus, you're going to have everlasting life. And repeating himself once more, saying, "I'm the bread of life." Those people of the past, they ate that manna. Yes, it was a miracle that happened for them, but the people that ate this manna, they're dead. The people that eat the bread which comes down from heaven, they're not going to die. They're not going to thirst. And so this bread that comes down from heaven is Jesus. And so that one may eat of this and not die. This is how you're going to have everlasting life, through Jesus. So Jesus repeating himself, making it clear so that there's no misunderstandings of exactly what he is saying here, making claims of divinity, making claims that the only way that you're going to have everlasting life is through him. And comparing himself to bread, comparing himself to water, and in a couple of chapters back, that he is what's necessary for us. And if one wants to have that bread, they need to believe on him. But we see here that even after these miracles that occurs, and that at least 5,000 people are witnesses to, they still don't believe. They still are caught up in the fact that, well, we know him. We grew up with him. We know his parents. He's not anyone special. And so Christ is showing them through his miracles, but they're still not believing. And so he's making these plain statements as well as to who he is. And so this ends our study tonight. Next time we'll work a little further into John chapter 6. I believe we might finish. We might have enough time to finish John chapter 6 next time. But if you got any questions or comments, feel free to leave them, even though we're about to end. Again, we have our YouTube page, in which you will be able to see all of our past videos. If you comment, I can see them, or at least I'll say that I can eventually see those comments, and I'll try to respond as well. But as always, I hope this has been useful. We'll keep on looking through the book of John for the next several weeks, and I hope that maybe you'll learn something, and maybe you'll be edified by the things in which we do here. Until next time, I hope that you all have a good day and a good rest of the week. Thanks.